Hello, hello, hello. Hi, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. I'm super excited that you guys are here. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I know you could have been anywhere in the world right now, but you decided to be here on Zoom with me tonight. So tonight, what I'm going to be teaching you guys is all things trust. So I know that you came here to learn what a trust is and how you can actually build wealth the right way utilizing this type of entity. So that's what I'm going to teach you guys tonight. If you are able to come on camera, I would really love that and appreciate that. So who do we have in the house? We have Ashley, we have Brittany, Christina, Dee, Dina, we have Empress, we have Fonda, Hasada, Harry, Hickman, we got Jeffrey, we have Jelani, John, hey Ken, we have Kenya, Crystal, Marissa, Michael, we have Mix, MJ, Mona, Miss F. King, I love it. Olga, Tiffany, Tosh, Alan. So we got a bunch of people in the house. So thank you so much. So let's just dive in. What I want to do is I want to introduce myself. I am Christina Yvette, the founder of 7 Ways to Wealth, you guys. So that is a brand where we educate people on how to actually protect their assets. So that's what this webinar is going to be about, you guys. So I have a short presentation for you guys. We're going to dive into some slides. It's going to be like an hour of the presentation, and then after that, we're going to dive into Q&A. So if you don't mind writing down your questions, I know you guys are going to have a ton of questions after the information that I'm going to go over. So if you could write down your questions, and then once we are towards the end of the webinar, I'll open up the floor for Q&A. You can ask any and all questions that you guys might have. So without further ado, like I said, I'm Christina Yvette. And the way that I actually got into this, so I'm a trust strategist. I have been a trustee for 9 years, you guys, since 2015. And the way that I actually got into trusteeship was by way of real estate. So I was a registered nurse. I was a nurse for 8 years, and I was in my second year of nursing. And I was living paycheck to paycheck, to be honest with you guys. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was tired of it because the hospital that I worked at, it was understaffed. And I was like the new nurse on the block. And so they was overworking me. I was working 12-hour shifts, 5, 6 days a week. And so I realized that I was spending more time in the hospital than I was spending at home with my 1-year-old at that time. Now he's 12 years old, he's grown. So because I realized that, I said, there's something that I have to do in order to compensate, because I can't just keep, because nurses are only supposed to work 3 days, but I'm working 5 and 6 days. And I'm working overtime and double time and all this stuff. I said, there's something else that I need to do. Like, I need to make a second stream of income. I need to make money somewhere else outside of the hospital, because this is exhausting. And so I said, I'm not even going to be in this career long, because I'm already burnt out and it's only my second year. So what I did was I was driving to work one day, and I heard on the radio this ad. And so the guy on the ad, he's like, do you want to learn how to flip houses? And I'm like, yes, that's what I answered to the guy. I was like, yes, I want to learn how to flip houses. So it was an invitation to a 3-day seminar. And in that seminar, I learned more about real estate than I have ever known in my life. And so I was so grateful, and I ended up enrolling in mentorship. So 6 months after that seminar, I was able to buy my first property. And I bought this little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in my neighborhood, right? Where I grew up in Miami. And so I bought this house, and it was run down. It was a house that this guy inherited from his mom, and it was like original from like the 50s. So with this house, I paid 89,000 for it. And my mentor, he told me, you need to put that house into a trust. And I didn't know what a trust was, because I was young and I was 25, and I was new into real estate. That was my first property. So he showed me what a trust was. He showed me how he had all of his properties in a trust. And at that time, he had like 2,000 properties. So it was like various apartment complexes and how he had all of his properties in a trust. So I set up a trust and I put that property into a trust because it was being renovated. And so anything could have happened, right? The contractors could have got injured on the job and then they can come after me and decide to sue me. And there goes my first property. I didn't even get to keep it because, you know, the plumber decided to sue me, right? So I didn't want that to happen. So I took heed to what he was saying and I set up a trust. I put that property into a trust. And a couple months down the line, I end up selling it for $235,000. So it was a fix and flip. So when that happened to me, I was like, oh my goodness, like you can make money without really having to work for it, right? Like all I did was park my money in this property. It was in this property for a couple months and then I sold it and I made more money. I made 6 figures off of one house. So it opened up my eyes. And from there, I started building wealth using trusts and using real estate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive into our presentation. So allow me to share the screen, you guys. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, we will save them for the end. But I am going to have some questions for you guys throughout the presentation. So let's talk about trust, because a lot of us, we know what trusts are, or some of us, we've heard the term trust, but we're not sure what it is, right? And so what I want to tell you guys is that a trust is an entity, right? A trust is an entity just like you. You are an entity. So you out here in society are considered a living, breathing entity. Your LLC is an entity, your corporation is an entity. And so a trust is also considered equivalent to you, a natural person, which is an entity, a living, breathing entity. So that means that a trust can do anything and everything that you can do. So if you can build credit, a trust can build credit. If you can buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can, get a mortgage, a trust can get a mortgage. If you can write a book, a trust can write a book, right? So there's no real limitations to what a trust can do, okay? So now that we know that it's an entity, how does this entity come into existence, right? Because we have this body here, right? And so a trust doesn't have a body, or does it, right? And so the trust actually comes into existence by way of a contract, okay? And you see it on the screen and I'll show it to you at the end of the call. So it comes into existence by way of a contract, okay? And so that is actually considered the body of the trust, okay? And so there's two parts to this contract. The first part is a declaration. So that is where you're declaring what it is and you're declaring what it's not. So whenever you're creating this contract, you have to declare, I am creating a trust entity, a trust by contract, okay? So that's one. The second thing is that you'd have to declare what it is not. So I'm declaring that I'm setting up a trust and that I am not setting up a corporation. I am not setting up an LLC. I'm not setting up a joint venture or any of those other types of entities, okay? So you have to clearly distinguish what you are creating here, okay? So that's the first part of this contract. The second part of the contract is the indenture. So that is the rules and the regulations, or what we call provisions. We call them trust provisions. So that is your articles and your sections where you have all the rules and regulations of how you want this trust to operate. Remember, you're creating this contract. So you have to put yourself in the position to where you're going to control this trust, right? So you have to put inside of the contract, I want, the trustee to do this, to do that, okay? And so that is the, what we call the bylaws of the trust, okay? So now that we know that it's a contract, what we need to know is that there's several different parties involved in this contract. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, okay? So two things. One, a trust has an establishment date. So that is the day that you are creating the trust. So if you're creating the trust today, you're going to put that the establishment date is today, okay? Now, you need a term for the trust, okay? So what does that mean? That means that you need to determine how long you want this trust to exist for. So you're going to choose anywhere between 1 to upwards of 100 years, right? And so if you are intentional about building generational wealth, then you're going to want to choose 100 years. Why? Because in that 100 years, the trust is going to expire. And so what you want to do, or the future trustee, what they want to do is they want to renew the trust for an additional 100 years. So now you have this trust that was just renewed for an additional 100 years, operating for 200 years. That is how you're going to ensure that your wealth is actually lasting many, many generations, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations, okay? So you can't be walking around here talking about you are building generational wealth, but you don't have the tools to build generational wealth. So I'm going to give you the game so that you guys can know what the tools are that you need in order to build generational wealth. So let's go back to this contract, right? So who are the actual parties involved in this contract? Well, you got 3 parties involved, right? Only 2 of them are required to sign the contract. The first party is the grantor. Other names that you might hear when you're doing your research about trust is settlor or trustor, okay? Both of those names mean grantor. Grantor means the creator of the trust. Who created the trust contract, okay? So usually the grantor creates the trust for the benefit of somebody else. That other person is a person or entity is the beneficiary, okay? So the second party involved in the trust agreement or contract is the trustee. So the trustee is the controller of the trust. That is the individual who's going to be operating the trust on a day-to-day basis. That is the individual who's going to control the trust, who's going to do the hiring and the firing and making sure that the trust is growing the assets, right? Making sure that you are defending the trust and protecting the trust and the benefits of the beneficiary. So next you have the beneficiary. That's the inheritor of the trust. So remember, you put assets inside of the trust. Somebody needs to inherit these assets once that trust is terminated. So you're going to list those individuals as your beneficiaries. Those could be your children, your next of kin, your sibling, whoever you want to receive your assets once the trust is terminated, okay? And so with the beneficiaries, they have to know the ins and outs of the trust so that they can stay in the guidelines of the trust. If not, then they can get kicked out of the trust, okay? So now that we know the different parties involved, let's talk about the different types of trust, because one thing that I want you to know is that there are hundreds of different types of trust, you guys. So you got to do your research. You have to do your due diligence and pick the right trust for you. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to break down certain categories that every single trust falls under, okay? So let's talk about the first category. The first category that I want to tell you guys about is express versus implied. An express trust is a written trust, you guys, okay? That means that it's written in black and white and on a contract, and it's going to be signed by the people that created it, okay? On the contrary to that, you have an implied trust. An implied trust is an oral trust. Just like how you can have an oral agreement between 2 people, you can have an oral trust that's created between the grantor and the trustee, okay? Usually oral trust will not hold up in court, so I wouldn't advise you to create that type of trust. Let's talk about the next category. You have simple versus complex. A simple trust is shorter in nature, so that means that it has less articles, provisions, or bylaws, okay? And that also means that the trustee is required to distribute or give distributions to the beneficiaries. Now, on the other hand, you have a complex trust. A complex trust means that it's longer in nature, it has more provisions, more bylaws, more sections within the indenture, okay? So that means that the trustee is not required to give distributions to those beneficiaries, okay? So let's talk about the next category. The next category is discretionary versus non-discretionary. So with a discretionary trust, that means that the trustee has full discretion to be able to make decisions for the trust that's not inside of the contract. Okay, so let's just say 10 years into the future, you want to invest into crypto, but inside of the trust contract, it doesn't say anything about you being able to invest in crypto. Well, because you have a discretionary trust, you can make that decision because you feel as a trustee that that's the best decision for the trust estate, okay? Now, on the other hand, you have non-discretionary. Non-discretionary means that you cannot make decisions for the trust that are not inside of that contract. So if you wanted to purchase that crypto, you couldn't if you had a non-discretionary trust, okay? So now let's talk about the next categories. We have statutory versus non-statutory. So with a statutory trust, what we're saying is that every single state has state laws. Those laws, we call them codes and statutes, okay? And so if you create a statutory trust, that means that you're creating a trust contract, but you're embedding the state statutes and codes for that specific state inside of your contract. So if you put those state statutes and codes inside of your contract, that means that one, you're giving jurisdiction to that state for that state to regulate your trust. Two, you're making that trust, usually it's registered with the county or the state, and you're making it public records. Three, you're restricted and you can only use that particular trust in that state. So if you create it in Florida, you can only use it in Florida. If you have rental property or business endeavors in Texas, you can't use it in Texas, okay? Now, with that statutory trust, like I said, you have limitations, okay? On the contrary, we have non-statutory. So non-statutory means that you're not going to embed the state statutes or codes inside of your trust. And so it's actually going to be operating under the common law jurisdiction. And so that means that you can use that trust in the entire nation. So you can use it in all 50 states plus all the US territories because it's not restricted to one state and it's not regulated by that one state, okay? So with the non-statutory trust, it usually is private, so it's not a part of the public records, okay? So you definitely want to consider that. Now let's talk about revocable versus irrevocable, you guys. So with a revocable trust, right? When we're using the term revocable and irrevocable, we are referring to the grantor's revocability or irrevocability, okay? So remember I told you a couple slides ago that the grantor is the creator of the trust, okay? So now that we know that the grantor is the creator of the trust, what you want to know about the revocable trust is that the grantor is actually able to make changes to the trust, can terminate the trust at any point in time, can remove assets from the trust, can terminate the trustees and remove the beneficiaries of the trust, okay? So because the grantor has so much power and control, your assets are not fully protected. Why? Because the grantor's creditors and the trustees' creditors can come after the revocable trust, okay? So they can sue that trust. If they decide to sue that trust and that trust ends up in court, the judge could decide to pierce through that trust. If the judge pierces through that trust, then that trust then becomes a part of the public records. If that trust becomes a part of the public records, then that means everyone is going to know the contents of the trust, so what's inside of it, plus the assets, plus who are the trustees and beneficiaries. You don't want that to happen, right? So now, on the contrary to that, we have an irrevocable trust. So an irrevocable trust is where the grantor has irrevocability, which means that they cannot terminate the trust, they cannot make any changes or amendments to the trust. If they were to put assets to the trust, they cannot take those assets out. Those assets are controlled by the trustee. They cannot remove any trustees or beneficiaries from the trust, right? So because the grantor has no power and no control over the trust, those creditors cannot come after that trust. So if they were to sue that trust, the judge will not pierce through an irrevocable trust, which means that you get to maintain that privacy and a security, okay, which is what you want. All right. So those are the main differences, and let's go and move on to the next slide. So now that you understand, right, what the different categories are, what I want you to know is there's something called a bulletproof trust, right? And so a bulletproof trust, out of all the categories that I just mentioned to you guys, it has it falls within a few of these categories, right? And so the bulletproof trust falls within the category of being express, right? So it is express in nature. It is complex in nature. It is discretionary. It is non-statutory, and it is irrevocable. So it has all five of those elements in it to make it bulletproof, which means that people cannot come after your assets. Your assets are fully protected, and it's impenetrable, okay? So if you want to create a trust, you definitely want to have that trust have those five elements, okay, or fall within those categories, and you definitely want a bulletproof trust. So what you need to do is, the first thing you need to do is you need to determine what type of trust you actually want to operate, okay, or create. Now that you know the type of trust that you want to create, let's move on to number 2. So the first thing is that you need to determine the trust name. 2 things that I want you to know when you're creating a trust, right? 1, do not name the trust after yourself. Remember, you are trying to maintain privacy. Okay, so you don't want anyone to know that you are associated with that trust. So do not name the trust after yourself. If your name is John Smith, do not name the trust the John Smith Trust, okay? So the second thing is that the word trust doesn't have to be in the name. So don't even have the name of the trust end in the word trust, like how we do with LLCs and corporations, okay? So keep that in mind. Now that you've named the trust, let's move on. You have to appoint the different peoples in this contract, okay? So the first person that you want to appoint is the grantor. If you're creating a bulletproof trust, which is an irrevocable trust, right? Out of those 2 positions, out of being the grantor and the trustee, the grantor has no power and no control. The trustee has all the power, all the control. You don't want to appoint yourself as the grantor. You want to appoint someone else that's at least 18 years or older as your grantor. And then you want to appoint yourself as the trustee, okay? Why? Because you want to maintain full control over the assets that are going to be placed inside of this trust, okay? So now that you've chosen a grantor and you've appointed yourself as a trustee, now you need to appoint beneficiaries. Those beneficiaries are going to be your children, or they could be other trusts or other entities, okay? And then after that, you're going to appoint a successor. The successor is going to be what we call a successor trustee. That is going to be the person who's going to be taking over after you in the event that something happens to you. Meaning, if you become incapacitated, if you wake up one day and decide that you want to resign from the trust, or if you expire, somebody needs to take over after you so that trust can continue to operate. So they're going to pick up where you left off. That is your successor. It's very important that you choose one, okay? Why? Because tomorrow is not promised. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3, we're going to actually create the trust agreement. Remember, we're creating a contract here, so it's time for us to start customizing this contract for the benefits of us, our family, our children, okay? So one thing that we do is we actually, we put spendthrift provisions inside of our trust. So what is that? Well, a spendthrift provision is where you want to put certain rules and regulations of how the beneficiaries can spend the money that's inside of the trust. Remember, the trust has funds, okay? And so those funds can be distributed to the beneficiaries. But these beneficiaries, sometimes they like to, waste the money. And so you want to put rules and regulations of how they can spend this money if they want to continue to receive funds from the trust, okay? So that is what you are going to do in order to ensure that that money is being preserved and not going to dissipate because the beneficiaries are just spending the money, blowing it frivolously, okay? So spendthrift provisions are super important, and that's you putting yourself in a position to where you're going to control the money from the grave. That's exactly what you want to do, right? You're out here leaving a legacy. And so you want to put those provisions in there so that you can control the money that you are right now putting inside of this trust, even years and years and years after you're gone, okay? So let's continue, you guys. Well, let me check on y'all. So how's it going so far? You guys enjoying this information? If you're enjoying this information, go ahead and put some fireballs in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. I want to see some activity.
Yes.
Thank you, because I'm alone up here. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. So I'm going to continue on because I see that you guys are still awake and I didn't put you to sleep because this information is kind of, it's kind of iffy. So with that being said, let's continue on with the slides. So, now that you guys created your trust, let's move on to number 4, where you're going to notarize the trust. Remember, this is a contract. It needs to be signed by 2 people. The people are the grantor and the trustee. Those signatures are required in order for this entity to be legalized. It needs to be signed in front of a notary. That notary is going to put their seal, and then guess what? That makes that contract legal now, and you can start to operate it. The minute that you notarize that contract, you can start operating it, okay? So what is the first thing that you want to do? Well, we're going to move on to number 5. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up that trust fund, okay? Because that's going to protect your cash, okay? Your cash is not protected if you just have it sitting in the bank in your personal name, okay? The government, the IRS, the judge, they can garnish your bank account. So what you want to do is you want to open up that trust fund, okay? So what does that look like? Well, you can open it up at a bank, at a credit union, at any financial institution like a brokerage, anywhere that offers trust accounts. What type of account? You can open up a checking account, a savings account, a money market account, a brokerage account, a cash management account. So those are the types of accounts at those financial institutions that you can open up for a trust, okay? It's going to be in the name of the trust, okay? So now that you opened up this trust fund, what do you need to bring? 2 things. 1, you need to bring a certificate of trust. What is that? A certificate of trust is proof of identity that the trust exists. So just like how you walk around with a driver's license or a state ID because you're an entity and you need to prove your name, the trust needs to do the same thing. So you're going to have a certificate of trust to prove that the trust actually exists, okay? The second thing is an EIN number with the IRS so that you can open up a bank account. Usually, some banks will not open up trust accounts if you don't have an EIN, okay? Not every single bank offers a trust fund account, so you have to do your research and your due diligence to make sure that whatever bank that you choose to create a banking relationship with, that they actually offer a trust account, okay? So now that you opened up a trust account, what is the next thing that you want to do? You want to actually protect your assets. So you want to transfer your assets into the trust. What does that look like? Well, that looks like, let's just say that you have a primary residence, right? A lot of us, our biggest asset or our biggest investment is our house, right? We worked so hard. We got this down payment. We got this house. And that's the number 1 asset that we have that we need to protect. Well, a lot of us don't know that we are a part of the public records when it comes to this house. Why? Because anybody and everybody can know who owns that house. Why? Because it's a part of the public records. All you have to do is go down to the county website. So whatever county, if you in Jefferson County, right? They go down to the county website. All they have to do is a property search or an owner name search. If they do a property search, they're going to put in your home address, and guess what's going to come up? Your name, your address, your phone number, right? And so everyone's going to know that you're the owner of that property. You just became low-hanging fruit for any type of attorney or person who wants to sue you, right? Remember, we are in a sue-friendly country, okay? So we're in the United States of America where everybody wants to sue you. Your neighbor wants to sue you. Your brothers and sisters want to sue you. Your best friend, whoever, your co-workers, your employer, everybody wants to sue you, okay? So you don't want to wait until you're getting sued in order to protect yourself from a lawsuit, okay? So what you want to do is you want to transfer that asset into the trust. What are the two things that you need to do? First, you need to list that asset inside of the trust. And when you're listing the asset inside of the trust, you're listing it saying that the trust owns it. The second thing you need to do is now you need to deed that property over. When you purchase that house, you got a warranty deed, right? So that represents that you actually own that property, right? So now what you need to do is you need to remove your name from the deed. So you need to deed it over from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then you're going to go down to the clerk of court. You're going to record that new deed. And now they're going to update the public records to show that the new owner of that house is the trust. Okay. And so now when somebody's looking up your property, right, they see it's owned by a trust and they don't even know who Sunflower Organization is. They're like, what the heck is Sunflower Organization? That's the name of your trust. Do they know that it's associated with you? No, they don't. Why? Obscurity, right? You just protected that asset and you just protected your privacy, right? So now they're not going to know who to go after, right? And sometimes it's very difficult to serve a trust because they don't even know how to serve you. They don't know what address to serve you at or anything, who's going to accept it, anything, right? So that is the most important thing because I've seen it so many times to where people will create trust, right? And then they'll just have it collecting dust and they never move or transfer their assets into the trust. And then the good Lord takes them tomorrow and now their family has to go to court, okay? So that's how you're going to protect your assets. Let's keep moving on. What can a trust protect you from, you guys? Well, the two reasons why you want to create a trust is one for asset protection and two for privacy. We was just touching on that. So a trust can actually protect you from bankruptcy, divorce, foreclosures, heavy taxations, lawsuits, and even probate, okay? So let's talk about a few of them. The first one that I want to tell you guys about is divorce, because a lot of us, we're married, right?
I'm you. I know you left me.
And somebody's off of mute. And we don't know that a divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys. So a divorce is a transfer of wealth.
You know you're playing ball.
Hold on, I have to mute somebody. Let's see here. Okay, perfect. Everybody's muted. Thank you so much. All right, so back to what I was saying. So a divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys. That is a lawsuit between two spouses. All right, two spouses are suing each other in court. So with a divorce, everything that you own that's in your personal name is going to be included in the divorce. So what we talking about? Your 401k, your car, your checking account, savings account, HSA accounts, right? All your retirement, your pension, your house, everything, your crypto, everything. Oh, yeah. Right? And so what that means is all of those assets are going to be included, plus even your debt. Your debt is also going to be included in that divorce, okay? So remember, the divorce is between two assets. So how can a trust protect you? Well, if you set up a trust, and if you transfer those assets into the trust, right? 5 years into the future, when that divorce happens, anything and everything that is inside of that trust cannot be pulled into that divorce. Remember, that divorce is between two people, okay? Not the trust. You are not the trust is not you. So the house that's inside of that trust, the bank account that's inside of that trust, the car that's inside of that trust cannot be pulled into this divorce, okay? Let's move on. Let's talk about heavy taxation because a lot of us are giving away our income. We are giving away 40%, 50%, 60%, especially if we're living in California and New York, you guys, okay? So with that being said, a trust can actually help you reduce your tax liability and save you from heavy taxation. Why? Because a lot of us don't know that the IRS, they tax you when you die. There's a death tax. There's an inheritance tax, right? You also got income tax, right? And so one thing about a trust is that you can actually donate, right? The IRS will allow you to do this. They will allow you to, if let's just say you're a W-2 employee, right? They will allow you to donate up to 60% of your income to your trust or any charity, right? And if they allow you to do that, right, that's 60% of your annual gross income. Now, what's going to happen is you're only going to pay taxes on 40% of your income, right? So you're going to be saving hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Because if you, let's just say you make $100,000 and you donate 60,000 to your trust, now instead of you being taxed on $100,000, you're going to be taxed on $40,000. So that's extremely beautiful, and we'll talk about that again in a couple more slides. Okay, let's move on to lawsuits. Right? Why? Because one thing that I tell people is you do not want to wait until you're getting sued for you to protect your assets, you know, from a lawsuit, okay? Don't wait until you're getting sued to protect yourself from a lawsuit. Why? Because we live in the United States of America. It's a sue-friendly country, okay? Your own brother and sister wants to sue you. Let's just be honest. So how can this actually protect you, right? Let's just say that you're running a business. You're running a business, you have a company. Let's just say you have an LLC, right? What does LLC stand for? So let's do some trivia here. What does LLC stand for, you guys?
Limited liability company.
Yes, thank you so much. I love that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so he got it.
Limited liability.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay, so now that we know that it stands for limited liability company, right? You hear it in the word, okay? You hear it in the name. Limited liability. So what does that mean? That means that the company has limited liability for whatever these lawsuits are or whatever claims comes against that company. Now, let me ask you this. Who do you think has the other half or the other portion of that limited liability? If the company has half of it, who do you think has the other half?
The person.
The person who created the LLC, right? Yes, you exactly. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into this, right? So now that we know that the LLC has, the actual company has limited liability, and now whoever created the LLC, right? So let's just say that it's you are what? The authorized member. You have what? Limited liability also. So let's just say somebody decided that they wanted to sue your business, right? This is one of your clients. I'm telling you, your clients even want to come after you, okay? So one of your clients decided they want to sue your business. Do you know how easy it is for them to find out who the owner of that business is? It's extremely easy. Why? Because all they have to do is go down to the Secretary of State. All they have to do is Google the Secretary of State, wherever that company is located, right? So let's just say it's in Texas, right? So now they go to the Secretary of State, and all they have to do is a business name search and put your company's information. And guess what comes up? The authorized member, the registered agent, right? All that information. So the authorized member of the LLC comes up, your name, your address, your email address, everything comes up, okay? Your phone number, everything, right? So now they know who the owner of that business is, right? So let's just say that that customer decides to continue with these claims against your business and sues your company. So now you in litigation back and forth, and you lose the lawsuit. Now you got a judgment against this company, right? And let's just say that that company can't fulfill the judgment. You don't got it, right? The company don't got it. Guess what could happen? Well, that judge can decide to pierce through that corporate veil, right? So remember, the LLC was like a little protection, right? That's why you decided to actually set it up so that you could do business and so that it could slightly, just a little tiny bit, protect you, right? And so that little veil, that covering that you thought you had, the judge decided to pierce through it and go after you as the authorized member. So now that the judge decides to go after you as the authorized member, guess what they can do? Garnish your wages, garnish your entire bank account, seize your assets like your house, your car, right? Your stocks, your bonds, they can do it all. So they can literally take every single thing from you in order to pay that judgment that's on your business. You don't want that to happen. So how can a trust protect you in this situation? Well, what you want to do is you want to set up a business trust. If you are a business owner or entrepreneur, if you got an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, all those things, what you want to do is you want to set up a business trust. Then what you want to do is you want to put that LLC into the business trust. You list it as an asset. An LLC is an asset. You list that asset inside of the business. Then you go down to the Secretary of State and you do an amendment to the Articles of Organization. And what do? You remove yourself as the owner. Now that you've removed yourself as the owner, you got to add the new owner. Who's the new owner? The business trust. And then you submit it, they process it, and they update the public records to show that the owner of that LLC is a business trust. What's the name of the business? Sunflower Organization. Who is that? We don't know, right? We don't know. Sunflower Organization owns this LLC. Okay? It has no, your name is nowhere on site. We're protecting your identity. And now, let's just say that this whole situation happened again, right? Somebody sued your LLC, they pierced through the corporate veil, they go after the owner. Guess who they're going after? The trust. And guess what? They're going after the trust. The trust takes full liability, 100%. The trust has 100% liability for that LLC. So that they can't come after you as the trustee. So they have to go after the trust entity. So that's what you want. You want a trust in between you and your company, right? That's going to be your first layer of protection between you and that business. You do not want to be the owner on paper of that business, okay? They can take everything away from you. I've seen it. I've seen it. So let's continue on, you guys. The next thing that I want to tell you guys about, right, that a trust can actually protect you from is probate. So let's talk about probate, but my question to you is, this for everybody. My question to you is, remember that fancy house that we was talking about 2 slides ago, where you got this 30-year mortgage, it's your biggest asset, you know, a lot of us, that's our number one thing, right? That's the most expensive thing that we own is, you know, $400,000-$500,000 house, right? So now you have this house. This house is in your name, right? This house is in your personal name right now, today. And you didn't wake up tomorrow. The question is, how do you expect that house that's in your personal name to be transferred, the ownership, right? The name on the deed, to be transferred from your name to your child's name, from your name to your spouse's name, from your name to whoever's name that you want to end up with that house? Let's hear it. How do you
It can't, except through court.
Thank you. She's so smart. We got some geniuses on here. Okay, I love it. Oh my God.
What about a will?
A will?
Uh-huh.
You guys, a will is a wish list. A will cannot own anything. A will is where you put on a piece of paper, your last will and testament, you put, I wish my daughter gets my house. I wish my son gets my house. I wish my whoever gets my bank account. That's what a will is. A will can't own nothing. So will end up in probate. Probate is the court process that it takes for dead people, okay? So let's talk about this. A will can be contested. A will, listen, a will, it's gonna end up in the probate process. There's only one way to avoid probate. That one way to avoid probate is by you setting up a trust. Why? We just said it. A trust can own everything. Okay, so you see the difference between a will and a trust? A will is a wish list, and a trust is an entity that owns things. It's a big difference. It's night and day. Everything that's inside of a will can go into a trust. When you have a trust, a will becomes obsolete. It's not necessary, okay? So now, let's talk about this whole process, you guys. What is probate? Probate is the process that you have to go through in the event that you pass away and you didn't have your affairs in order, right? So let's talk about this because this is the most important thing. This is why we're here. So you got all this fancy stuff. You got a house, you got a car, you got $1 million in the bank, right? Let's just say you got $200,000 in the bank, right? You got money and you got debt too, right? Let's just say you got student loan debt, credit card debt, a car loan, right? You have debt too, right? And so with this whole process, if you don't wake up tomorrow and you don't have your affairs in order and all you have is a will, guess what happens? Now you're going to drag your family through the probate process. Why? Because your family, they just lost the most important person of their life, right? And instead of them grieving properly, you're now going to be dragging them through probate, through court. And what are they going to be doing in court? They're going to be fighting for your assets. So they're either going to be fighting each other or they're going to be fighting the government. Okay. So now a lot of us, we don't know what that whole probate process looks like. Well, guess what? If you don't wake up tomorrow, right, and you don't have your affairs in order, and all you have is a will or you don't have nothing, right? The state where you're a resident will create an estate for you. So if you're a resident of Texas, Texas will create an estate for you. They're going to call it the John Smith estate. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to put all your assets in there. They're going to put your house, your car, and the $200,000 that you have sitting in your checking account inside of your estate. Okay? So one thing that I want to bring you to your attention is that at the end of the day, you're going to have an estate anyways. Either the state of Texas is going to create it for you when you die, or you're going to create your own trust estate now when you're alive. Okay? So let's look at this whole process when the state creates it for you. So now you didn't have your affairs in order. You don't force the state to create an estate for you. And now they put all your assets in there, okay? And so now what happens is your estate goes to probate. It goes to probate court. So the first thing that happens is that your estate needs to be represented by a probate attorney and is going to be in probate court. So now you actually are giving the power of a judge to make the decisions of what happens to your assets. That judge doesn't know you. That judge doesn't know your children. But yet you decided, because you didn't want to have your affairs in order, that you're going to give all that power to that judge that doesn't even know how hard you worked to keep that $200,000 in the bank and to keep that house, right? Paid it off, 30-year mortgage. So what is going to happen? The first thing that the judge is going to do is pay off your debt. right? So all those creditors, your credit cards, your student loans, Medicare, Medicaid, the nursing home, the ICU, the ambulance, the hospital, all of those creditors are going to come after your estate. And guess what the judge is going to do? Pay everybody off. Pay off all the creditors, all the liability, all the debt. Okay? So now that's the first thing that happens. The second thing that happens is the probate attorney gets his fees, his or her fees, right? They got fees. Then the third thing is the probate court takes their court fees. So everybody done got paid from your estate, right? And all of that was your children's inheritance. Let's just be real. So now guess what? Your children are left with the leftovers. That's what they get. Your children get the leftovers of whatever little is left inside of that estate after everybody done got paid. Okay? So that is definitely not the process that you want your family to go through, right? Because that is, you are actually doing your family a disservice if you allow them to go through that whole probate process, knowing very well that you can avoid probate. The only way to avoid probate is by setting up your own trust estate while you're living, putting your assets into that estate. So let's say that you took that process, right? You set up the trust, you put your house in there, you put your paid off car in there, and that trust fund had the $200,000 in it, not a checking account with your personal name. So now all of those assets are protected, right? And they're in the name of the trust. You're the trustee. Guess what happens? Well, you didn't wake up tomorrow. Guess what? Your successor trustee, the person who you appointed to take after you, that person now takes over. They pick up where you left off. So guess what they do? They continue to maintain your assets. And guess what? Your children get 100% of their inheritance. Why? You already knew that you wanted your children to inherit your assets, right? So you got your affairs in order, and now your children are, one, they get to grieve properly because they don't have to be dragged into probate to fight to keep your house or to fight each other. Let's just keep it real, because siblings change once their parents are gone, right? So you already know that you wanted your children to keep their inheritance, right? Or to have your assets, right? And so now they're going to be the beneficiaries of your trust. They're going to receive 100% of their inheritance, right? Your children never have to go to probate court. You don't have to ever, they don't have to ever see court, like in this entire process. And your debt, the hospital bills, the nursing home, Medicare, Medicaid, the government, right? The county, the city, credit cards, all the credit cards, the student loan, all of that debt dies with you. Why? Because all of that was in your personal name. Those creditors cannot come after your trust. Your trust is protected and protecting your assets. That is the process that you want your family to go through, right? So like I said, probate it can be avoided only if you get your affairs in order, and if you decide that you're going to create your estate while you're living, and if you actually put your assets in the estate. I have seen so many times where people, they go through the probate process and they can't even keep mom or dad's house because the judge decided to sell it in order to pay Medicare and Medicaid. I just had a lady call me and told me that the state of Massachusetts took $126,000 from the estate after they sold her father's house. And that $126,000 could have went to her, or it could have went to her children. But instead, the state of Massachusetts got it. So you want to make sure that your children get their inheritance, because we're losing it inside of the court, right? The court is literally auctioning our houses away, you guys. So let's continue on. I got 2 or 3 more slides for you, and then we're going to wrap it up, okay? So let's see here. All right, so this is the wealth building formula, you guys, okay? I got 3 pillars here for you guys. I got structure, credit, and invest. So let's talk about structure. The first thing that you need to know about structure is that, one, you got to be properly structured. If you're not properly structured, then it's time to get restructured. The structure that I recommend is for you to have multiple trusts within your structure. So these are the trusts that I recommend. A business trust if you're a business owner or entrepreneur. A family trust if you have personal assets that have nothing to do with business and you have a family and you want your children to be beneficiaries. And a tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? Why? Because you want to have a for-profit within your entity, within your structure, and you want to have a nonprofit within your structure as well. The nonprofit is going to help you reduce your tax liability, okay? So let's dive into this. So let's start with the business trust, you guys. So with the business trust, the first thing that I want you guys to know is that with this trust, there's a couple ways that you can actually use it. So the first way is, like I said, if you are a business owner or entrepreneur, you can use it as a holding company. So what does that mean? That's the example that I gave you earlier, where the business trust is going to own your LLCs or be shareholders in your C Corps and S Corps, okay? So with that being said, it can act as a holding company, and the way that it acts as a holding company is non-operational, okay? So it's not going to be offering any products or services. Your LLC is going to remain fully operational, where your LLC is doing the business. Your LLC is the one that has the customers and the clients and the employees and the products and the services. And your business trust is only there to own the LLC and to hold that asset, okay? So for the business trust that's being a holding company, you're going to put the LLCs, the S Corps, and the C Corps, as well as any commercial properties or commercial cars or trucks, things like that, okay? So that's one way that you can use it. The second way that you can use it is by actually conducting business, okay? So you can use it operational, fully operational, where it has product, services, and employees. That is if you don't want to go the route of actually setting up an LLC or setting up, a corporation. So if you don't have those things already, you don't have to go get them. Because you have to understand, right, with an LLC and an S Corp and C Corp, you go to the Secretary of State. That means that you're giving the state jurisdiction to regulate your business, and they could shut you down at any point in time. Why? Because if you don't pay your annual report, guess what? You can't operate your business, right? But with a business trust, you could operate that business for 100 years without even having to renew it every single year and paying $200 to the state, okay? So you have to do your pros and cons to see which one is best for you. So now with the business trust, right? Let's just say that you're operating it as a holding company. You remove yourself from the LLC, you put the business trust as the LLC inside of the LLC, right? As the owner. So that LLC, let's say that LLC generated $100,000. It's a pass-through entity, and they can do a K-1 distribution and distribute all that money to the owner. The owner is, the business trust. So now all that money, the $100,000, went to the business trust, right? So now that it's at the business trust level, one thing that I love about these entities is that you actually you spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers. So that's my favorite thing about a trust, right? Is that you get to spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers, you guys, okay? So with that being said, a business trust files a 1041. You as a human, you file a 1040. A business trust files a 1041. So you can already see that through the government, they already know that a trust is a separate entity from you, okay? So that's one. Two, a trust can pay anywhere between 10% upwards of 39% in taxes, okay? So what you want to do is you want to reduce as many taxes as possible. So now that $100,000 came into the business trust, what are you going to do with it? You're gonna spend the money first, and then you're gonna be taxed on the leftovers. So what does it look like for you to spend the money first? Well, that means that you're going to be deducting your operating expenses, your OPEX, right? And so what you're going to do is whatever it costs and for you to run that business, you're going to then write it off. Let's just say it costs 30K for you to run that business, right? So now out of that 100,000, you wrote off 30K. So now you have 70,000 left that you literally have to pay taxes on. But one thing that I love about a trust is that a trust can actually, instead of paying taxes, it can distribute that money to the beneficiary, and then the beneficiary has to pay taxes, okay? So what we do here is that trust is going to distribute that 70,000 to the beneficiary. The beneficiary, we make the beneficiary of the business trust, the family trust. Why? Because if you are a full-time business owner or entrepreneur, right, you are running this business to provide for your family. So the beneficiary of your business trust should be your family trust, because that money is going to go into your family, okay? So now that we know that, that 70,000 was then distributed to the family trust. So now on the business trust level, you wrote off 30,000, you distributed 70,000, there's 0% that's left, which means that you have a 0% tax liability and you're done paying taxes for the business trust. So now let's move on to the family trust. The family trust just received 70,000 in income. The family trust has to spend the money first and be taxed on the leftovers. So what does it cost in order to run that family, right? Well, you got mortgage, you got taxes, you got utilities, you have insurance policies, you have, real estate, you have beneficiaries, you have all this stuff, right? So let's just say out of that 70,000, it costs 60 in order to run the business. Well, now that you deducted, did a tax deduction for 60,000 out of the 70, right? Now you got $10,000 that's left over. Well, now you're gonna have to pay $1,000 in taxes for that money that's left over, okay? So you could very well do that. Another thing that I want you to know is that in order to reduce your tax liability even further, you can actually donate to your tax-exempt nonprofit trust. So what exactly is that, right? Well, let's talk about it. Remember, I told you I want you to have a for-profit and a nonprofit. With a nonprofit, we call it a lot of things. We call it a ministry trust. We call it a church. We call it a faith-based organization, or we call it like a nonprofit or a ministry, right? So there's so many names that we can use for this organization, but it is a trust that's designated as a 508c1a. What is that? That is the only mandatory exception for not having to file for a 501c3. Normally, all nonprofits, in order for them to be exempt on the federal level only, right, they have to go down the 501c3 route, right? And that's totally understandable, right? So there's something called a separation between church and state. So if your faith-based organization or your church or your ministry, right, or your trust, right, it falls within this category, then there's a separation between church and state. So that means that in order for you to be exempt from filing federal taxes, you do not have to file a 501c3. You just have a mandatory exemption, and you're automatically exempt from federal taxes, right? Now, this type of entity can qualify to be exempt from state taxes, county taxes, city taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, and any other types of taxes, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, that example that I gave you earlier about you being a W-2 employee and you donating 60% of your income to your trust, this is the trust that I was telling you guys about, okay? So that means that if you generate, right? So if you look it up in the IRS, the IRS will allow you to donate up to 60% of your annual gross income. If your annual gross income is 100,000 and you decide I want to donate 60,000, you're going to put it into your trust organization. And then you're only going to be taxed on 40,000. You're going to be saving thousands of dollars in taxes. What can you do with those thousands of dollars? You can then put that money that you're saving into assets so that you can grow your wealth efficiently and effectively and even faster. You're going to grow it faster. If you decide, hey, I'm not going to give it to the IRS, I'm going to reduce my taxes, I'm going to move it into my trust, and then I'm going to invest those funds somewhere else, you're going to grow your wealth faster. Okay. So with that being said, that is the structure. Now let's move over to credit, because one thing is that since you have a nonprofit within your structure, you can qualify for nonprofit grants. The second thing is that you want to put yourself in a position to where you're using OPM, other people's money. How? Well, you want to establish a second credit profile. Why? Because you personally are only depending on your personal income. I mean, excuse me, on your personal credit, right? And so because you're depending on your personal credit, right? Sometimes we got, utilization rate is high. We got all of these inquiries on our credit. So you want to be able to leverage a second credit profile. Right now that you have a second credit profile, what you're going to do is you're going to build credit with the business trust. Why? Because what you need to know is that the business trust builds credit off of the EIN, just like the LLC, just like the corporations, okay? So now that you're building credit, you're going to qualify for higher lines of credit, like 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 versus lower lines of credit, like 5K, 10K, 15K on the personal side, okay? So now you
Do we get
want to
an
be able to have
EIN for
different credit.
the non-registered business trust?
Yes, do you mind? We're gonna finish and then we'll dive into questions, but yeah, that's what I'm explaining right now. So the trust can get an EIN. All
Okay.
right. So you guys, with that being said, right? You're going to build credit off of that EIN. Let's move over to invest, okay? So now that you understand the structure, you understand OPM, we're gonna move over to invest, so that I can tell you guys about my favorite assets, right? So these two are assets that you can actually start creating or building in order to build wealth, okay? So the first one is an index universal life insurance policy. So that is a liquid asset. Then you have real estate, which is a tangible asset, okay? So let's talk about it. So the first one is the IUL, right? Index universal life, okay? A lot of us, when it comes to this, right? When it comes to life insurance, a lot of us think that life insurance is supposed to be used when we are dead. But in actuality, life insurance is supposed to be used when we are living. Why? Because it has a lot of living benefits. Like you can actually build cash value in there, and that money that you're accumulating inside of your life insurance policy is tax-free. Your life insurance policy will not end up in probate, right? So there's so many benefits, right? A life insurance policy is seen as an asset, okay? So now what are you gonna do, right? Well, the trust is going to be the owner of the policy, is going to be the payer of the policy, paying the premiums, and it's going to be the beneficiary. Because if anything happens to you, that death benefit is going to go to the trust. So let's break down IUL. So the first word that you see is index. What is an index? It's actually referring to an indice. The indice is a part of the market, the stock market, okay? So you have several different indices. You have Dow Jones, you have NASDAQ, and you have the S&P 500, which is tracking the top 500 companies in this country, okay? So now what happens is you're paying your premiums every single month and you're building cash value. So the IUL policy has one bucket that is cash value. The other bucket is your death benefit, okay? So now with the cash value, let's just say that you're paying, $500 a month. Well, 400 of it is going to go to cash value. The other 100 is going to go to the cost of doing insurance, okay? So now that 400 is going to be compounding and earning interest on the market. The beautiful thing that I love about an IUL is that if you're tracking, like, let's just say the S&P 500, what happens is the carrier, the insurance carrier, is going to match what the market is doing and give you that in returns, which means that if the stock market is doing 9%, then the carrier is going to match that 9% and give it to you, right? So they're going to give you 9% on that 400 that you have in there. So this is a beautiful way that you can actually build wealth, right? And so you want to put yourself in a position to where you're going to pay yourself first. And I'm going to say that again. You want to put yourself in a position to where you're going to pay yourself first, right? And so let's talk about that. All right, guys. So what does that look like, right? Because let's just be honest. You know, what I'm about to tell you guys, it actually takes a mindset shift, right? Because a lot of us, we are working 40 hours a week. We're working for 40 years and we're retiring when we're 65. And so we are literally living paycheck to paycheck, right? We are literally like on the hamster wheel. And so let's just say that you just got paid today. You just got paid. Let's just say it's Friday. You just got paid today. What does that look like? Well, the first thing that happened was, right before that money even hit your bank account, was the IRS did their withholdings. Then Medicare did their withholdings. Then the Social Security Administration did their withholdings. Then you did 401k contribution. So what does that mean? That means that you just paid 4 organizations before you even got paid. The IRS, Medicare, Social Security, and the 401k contribution. So they just got paid before you even seen your paycheck. And now what happens? Your paycheck, your money goes direct deposit where? It goes direct deposit into a bank. It goes direct deposit into your checking account, right? So what happens, right? Let's just say that your paycheck today was $5,000. That $5,000 just came right into your checking account. And so you actually paid Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase first, right? You paid them first. And so what is it that the bank does with your money? They leverage your money, you guys. So the banks, you're putting your hard-earned paycheck inside of the bank. They are leveraging your money in order to get richer, right? So what are they doing, right? Because we live in a fractional reserve system, they don't even have to have all of the money in there, right? So they go and pimp it out. So they go and give it away for student loans, for car loans, for credit cards, for mortgages, for home equity line of credit, for you name it. So they're out lending your money, and guess how much they're making? 10%, 20%, 30% returns on your money, right? And how much are you making? 0.0005%. So you're literally making nothing, and you're making the banks get richer. Let's just be honest, right? So now a lot of people think that the banks, that their number one way that they're getting rich is by giving out these mortgages and giving out these credit cards. But in actuality, their number one asset is life insurance. So you can look it up. Their number one asset is life insurance. So it's called BOLI, bank-owned life insurance, okay? And so that's how the banks are getting rich, okay? And if the banks are getting rich with life insurance, do you also think that you should be getting rich with life insurance? Yes. So now, what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you're becoming your own bank. And that's going to be by way of you setting up your life insurance policy because it's liquid. So what does that look like? Well, you just got paid today. You got paid $5,000. What is the first thing that you do? So the first thing that you do is you pay your rent, you pay your mortgage, you buy groceries, you pay utilities, you put gas in the car, you pay your car note, everything, right? So that is what you do. You go and pay everybody else. All of these different companies got paid. And what are you left with? You leave the leftovers in your checking account, right? To collect 0.000 nothing, right? That is literally what you leave in there. Or maybe you'll transfer it to a high yield savings account, right? So that money that just came in, that $5,000, by the time you're done paying all your bills, you got $800 left. And so what you can do is you can put that $800 into the life insurance policy, or you can do it the other way, where you can put the $5,000 into the life insurance policy. So the whole concept of you paying yourself first is, instead of you deciding to pay all your bills first, what you're going to do is you're going to, that $5,000, you're going to put it inside of your life insurance policy. And now your cash value went up by $5,000. And now you're going to earn compound interest off of that $5,000. If the market is doing 9%, you're going to get 9%, right? If the market is doing, 3%, you're going to get 3%. If the market is doing negative, it's risk-free asset. So you're just going to get 0 or 1, right? So that's the beautiful thing about this type of policy, is risk-free, right? But let's say you put that $5,000 in there, right? So now you're earning the 9%, right? So now you're paying yourself first because your money is making money for you. Your money is going out there, working hard, and bringing back friends. Every single dollar that's going out there is coming back and bringing 10%, bringing a dime, right? And so that's what you want, right? And so now, remember, that $5,000 is inside of your life insurance policy. At the end of the day, you need that money. Why? Because you need to be able to keep the lights on, to put groceries, in the fridge and on the table, to put gas in a car for you to make it to work the next day, right? So what happens is you're going to actually take out a loan against your against your cash value. So what happens is the carrier, right? You're going to put in a request for a loan. The carrier is going to look outside of your cash value, and they're going to say, okay, yeah, he got $5,000 in there. We'll lend him $4,800, right? And so now, instead of them taking out the $5,000 from your cash value, what they do is they lend you $4,800 from their money, from their reserves. And so now they direct deposit that money back into your bank account. And now you can use that money in order to pay your rent, your bills, the gas, and everything that you need to do. So that's the concept of paying yourself first. And that's what you can do if you want to build wealth efficiently and effectively. Because now you're going to be earning, the 9% off of 5K versus 9% off of $800, okay? So that's the concept of with the life insurance. Now let's move on to real estate. When it comes to real estate, you guys, that's your tangible asset. That is one way that you definitely need to use in order to build wealth. right? So with real estate, a trust, right, can actually take out a mortgage, can actually own a house, can actually get a home equity line of credit, right? And so what you want to do is you want to put the trust in a position to where it's sustaining itself, right? And so you want the trust to then be able to acquire these types of assets, right? So that it could actually sustain itself and you don't have to be pouring in your W-2 income to the trust. So what does it look like for the trust to acquire asset? Well, the first thing is it's going to acquire an investment property, right? And so we have investment loans out here that are called debt service ratio loans, DSCRs, right? And with those loans, those are specifically for investment properties, and you can get upwards of 80%. So if you get 80% of the purchase price through that loan, through you getting a mortgage under the trust, then how are you going to get that other 20%? Well, the thing that I love about real estate, right, is what I told you guys earlier, right? This is what I love about OPM, using other people's money. That is how you're going to get rich, you guys. That is how you're going to build wealth, by using other people's money. Please do not stay in this mindset that you have to be pouring in your W-2 income, right? Or using your own money, right? So you're going to use OPM. Remember earlier, we said that we can build credit with the business trust and that we can qualify for credit cards and lines of credit, right? So if we are qualifying for credit cards and lines of credit, what we need to do is we need to use that as the down payment for the real estate. So let's just say you got a credit card for, 25, 30K. What you're going to do is you're going to strip that credit card. When you strip that credit card, the first place that you want to park that money is into your IUL policy. So now your IUL policy, the cash value went up by 30,000. You go ahead and borrow against it. And let's just say you take out, 28,000. And so now that 28,000, you're going to use it as down payment for real estate. So now you got the 80% loan, right, for the purchase price with the mortgage. And then the other 20%, you got it from your business credit card. So that's literally 100% of the purchase price, which means that you just bought that real estate zero down, not using any of your own money and using OPM. You're using the bank's money, okay? So that is how you're going to acquire real estate specifically for the trust, so that you can actually build up your asset portfolio and have the trust sustain itself, okay? So let's move on to the next one. So the next one is how to actually transfer wealth, right? So you guys want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. And I'm going to say that again. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is the definition of stewardship. Stewardship is where you're being a good steward of the assets that you have inside of your estate. You're making sure that they're growing, that they're well maintaining, and that you are, liquidating or selling or doing what you need to do, right? So that is extremely powerful. So now, that is what you want to do versus what you're doing right now, you guys. So what you're doing right now is called ownership. Ownership is where you are this proud owner of the house, you guys. And so you have the house in your personal name, and you just want everybody to know that you're the owner of this property, right? And so ownership is going to put you in that position to where your assets are not protected, to where somebody can snatch your assets from you and end up in probate, right? And so you have to understand that if you didn't wake up tomorrow and your name is on that house, right? That house is going to outlive you. That house is still going to be there. So what you truly want is to be able to control that house or control that asset while you're living. The ownership is not really the most important part. It's the control, right? So now that you know that that house is going to outlive you, now that you know that if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there, What you want is to have that house in a trust. You be the trustee, you control that house while it's in the trust, while it's protected. That's what you want, right? So that is what you get with stewardship. So let's move on to TCUs. What do TCUs stand for? Trust certificate units. So trust certificates are just like stock certificates. You know how stock certificates represents ownership in a company? Well, TCUs represent beneficial interest in a trust, okay? So with a trust, we don't use the word ownership. Nobody can't own a trust. The individuals can have beneficial interest in a trust, okay? So now, your trust is going to create 100 units. 100 units is going to represent 100% of beneficial interest. So let's just say that that trust is worth $1 million, right? Well, now let's just say that you have 5 beneficiaries. Each of those beneficiaries, you issue them 20 TCUs, per beneficiary, okay? So now I'm one of your beneficiaries. I just got 20 TCUs. That means that my 20 TCUs is equivalent to $200,000 of the overall net worth of the $1 million that's in that trust. So that's what your beneficiaries get. They get the TCUs. And when that trust is terminated, if you allow it to expire, but you not, because you're building generational wealth and you're going to let it renew and you're going to let it last 2, 3, 400 generations, right? 400 years. When that trust expires, the beneficiary will receive a payout of $200,000 out of that $1 million, okay? Or if it's, if it's 100 houses, they'll receive 20 houses, right? That's just what it is. So now let's talk about preservation. All right, well, let me check the pulse in the room. How's everybody doing? Are y'all liking this information so far? Because we're about to wrap it up. Like, I got another 10
sure am.
Yes.
I sure am. Hey, I can't wait to ask some
Okay,
questions,
okay.
girl.
All right, I love it. Because y'all got me alone over here. Okay. All right, guys. So we're about to drive this thing home, okay? So thank you for hanging in there. All right, guys. So let's talk about preservation, okay? So preservation is super important. A lot of us, we are not asking ourselves, how am I going to preserve my wealth, right? You're not asking yourself, this wealth that I'm creating, right? Y'all so focused on making the money, but y'all not focused on, how am I going to protect this money? How am I going to transfer this money? How am I going to preserve this money or wealth, right? You guys are not asking yourself that question, right? So when it comes to preservation, there's 2 things that you need. One is you need a trust. The second thing that you need is a life insurance policy, okay? So how many times have we seen it to where you got athletes, you got famous families, you got celebrities, right? Actors, actresses, right? How many times have we seen it to where they blow all the money in their lifetime, or it doesn't even last the 2nd or 3rd generation because their kids blow it? We see it so many times. Why? Because they didn't have their affairs in order. They didn't have a trust. They didn't have life insurance policies, right? So a trust in the life insurance policy is a marriage. It works beautifully together, and I'll break that down for you. So let's talk about this. So your trust has a lot of assets, right? Your trust has a house, and this house has homeowners insurance, even flood insurance, right? Just in case. Your trust has a car. That car has car insurance, right? Your trust has a bank account. That bank account has FDIC insurance, right? So you got all these assets. But what you need to understand is that the trust has insured all of their assets. Those are tangible assets. Those are liquid assets. But the trust also has what we call a human asset or human capital. That is you. You are the human asset associated with the trust. Why? Because you are the most important person in this whole trust organization, because you are the trustee. If anything happens to you, the trust is devastated. The trust is experiencing a loss. And the trust needs to be compensated for that loss. So what happens is the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on the trustee, any co-trustee, the beneficiaries, and any future beneficiaries. Because if anything happens to you, that death benefit of $3 million goes to the trust fund, and now the trust is replenished. So that is a beautiful process, because that is now going to ensure that that wealth is being preserved. That is how you preserve your wealth. So one is that the trust is going to be the owner of that policy, right? You are going to be the insured because you're insuring your life. The trust is going to pay the premiums every single month or quarterly. And the trust is going to be the beneficiary of that policy, just in case anything happens to you. That death benefit goes to the trust, right? And so the trust is going to do that for you as the trustee, for any future trustees, for any co-trustees, for the beneficiary and the future beneficiaries, right? So that if there is a future beneficiary that is born into the trust, we call that a trust fund baby. So we need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, you guys. Trust fund, being a trust fund baby is an absolute beautiful thing. Sometimes it has a very negative connotation, and I don't understand why. It actually is phenomenal, right? And so this is the way that it works, right? So you have a baby that is born into the trust. When that baby is 30 days old, the trust is going to apply for a life insurance policy for that baby. That baby is now going to be insured with an IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. From the time that that baby is 30 days old, the trust is going to be pouring in, let's just say $100 a month, $100 a month, right? Pouring in to that baby's policy, and that is going to be earning compound interest. So that trust fund baby is going to be earning compound interest from 30 days old. That is an enormous amount of wealth that's going to be accumulated, okay? So now let's just say, fast forward into the future, that trust fund baby is now 18. So what happens when that trust fund baby's 18? They got to go to college, right? They got dorms or housing, student apartments, right? But then they also got to get their first car, right? So let's just say that that trust fund baby needs to get their first car. Normally, what they can do is they can go to the dealership and they can pull their credit and they can get an auto loan with the dealership for this $30,000 car. So that means that now they're going to be paying $1,000 a month to the dealership, right? Paying 30% in interest, you know, the normal way. Or what they can do is, because they are a beneficiary of a trust, because they are what we call a trust fund baby, they can go to the trust. So beneficiaries and trustees can borrow tax-free from the trust fund. They can request loans, okay? And so now this trust fund baby is gonna go to the trust and request a loan for $30,000 so that they can go buy their first car. And so the trustee, which is you, is gonna cut a check and hand it over to that beneficiary with a promissory note. And the promissory note, you're gonna sign it, they're gonna sign it, and it's gonna say that the beneficiary promises to pay back the 30,000 plus 2% interest to the trust. And now that beneficiary is gonna start paying the trust $300 a month versus paying the dealership $1,000 a month, right? And so now the trust is earning 2%, which is a little bit of interest, right? Which is good, but just imagine putting that trust fund baby in that position, right? Where they're not starting off life in debt, right? And so now, let's just say that a year into the future, that trust fund baby decides to default and no longer wants to go ahead and pay the trust the $300 a month. Well, guess what happens? Nothing. Why? Because it was a risk-free loan. Why? Because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money came from the trust fund baby's life insurance policy. So what transpired on the back end was the trustee, the moment that the trustee received a request for a loan for $30,000, that trustee went and contacted the insurance carrier and requested a loan, you know, and the carrier, the insurance company, used their cash value as collateral, right? And so they requested a loan from that life insurance policy of that trust fund baby. And so now the insurance company issued them a check, direct deposit into the trust fund, the $30,000. That money came from the life insurance policies, from the life insurance carrier's reserves, from their bank account, right? And so now, when that money was direct deposited into the trust fund, the trustee wrote a check and handed it to the beneficiary, right? So that loan did not need to be paid back. Why? Because that loan is going to be deducted from the death benefit. So that loan is going to be forgiven by the trust when that trust fund baby expires. So when that trust fund baby expires, guess what? They got a death benefit of $5 million. That $5 million goes straight to the trust, right? So that is the process that it takes when you want to ensure that your wealth lasts many, many generations, and you want to make sure that you're preserving the wealth that you're creating today, okay? It's extremely powerful, but like I said, it takes a mindset shift, right? Because right now we are, you know, in this mentality where we want to keep doing things the way that we've been doing it, but we don't even know that we're going to keep getting the same results that we've been getting, which is being in the rat race, living paycheck to paycheck, and staying on that hamster wheel. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to be that generational curse breaker that you know that you are. What you want to do is you want to change the trajectory of your children's life and your children's children's life by actually creating this trust estate, by actually leaving them a legacy, and by actually converting them into trust fund babies. So with that being said, these are the books that I recommend you guys, okay? We wrapping it up. We landing the plane, okay? So what would the Rockefellers do? That is a really good book, which explains the marriage between trust and insurance policies, okay? It's a beautiful, beautiful combination. The second one is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. It teaches you about trusteeship, you guys, how to actually operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth. It teaches you how to run your family like a business. You need to be running your family like a whole organization. You are the CEO of your family. Your spouse is the CFO of the family, right? Your children, they little COOs. Let's just continue to operate our family like that. And with that being said, that book is called Family Wealth. It teaches you how to actually create a family office, okay? And then the last one is the Complete Book of Trust that teaches you about the different types of trust. All right. So I'm going to show you a quick little video from an individual who took action on the information that I shared tonight and became a trustee.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, you know, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, you know, I guess that's the big thing, you know, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions. Things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
Perfect. Thank you, Antonio. Okay, so what you guys need to do is you need to take action on the information that I provided with you guys tonight, okay? This could be your new form of doing business, making profit in your business, and solving a lot of the problems dealing with transferring your assets, with protecting your assets, and with saving on taxes, okay? So you want to treat your business, or you want to treat this whole entire trust structure like a Google, like a Facebook, like an Amazon, right? You don't want to treat it like no little mom and pop shop, okay? This is not what that is, okay? So what I want is for us to work together, you guys, okay? So I do have a program teaching you guys this information, okay? There's only so much that I could have gone through in this little 90 minutes that we've been together. So the first option is you can do it yourself. That is for people who are independent learners. And what we have is a course, okay? And so it has 43 video modules, and it comes with the 3 trusts that I told you guys about earlier: the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit tax exempt trust, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're going to watch the video trainings, which were super thorough. We break down every single paragraph of the trust, and I'm about to show you what a trust looks like, okay? And you'll download the templates and start customizing it for your specific business or your family, okay? You get lifetime access to the course, so you get to log in and do it at your own pace. Plus, you get resources and ebooks. All the books that I just mentioned are inside of the program electronically, okay? Some of those books, if you go on Amazon, they cost $800, okay? And so we've included it inside of our program so that you can get that knowledge, okay? And then we have the resources. The resources are everything that you need in order to operate a trust, right? So if you need to do a board meeting, we provide you with that. If you need to file your taxes, we provide you with the tax forms. If you need to transfer your house, we provide you with the quick claim deed. If you need to transfer your business, we provide you with the business purchase agreement. Everything that you need for the trust, we provide you, okay? Then the other thing is that we have a private Facebook community. So our program has over 600 trustees, and we have a private Facebook community where you can ask questions and you can network with like-minded people. We also have a private Telegram chat where you can chat back and forth, where we put announcements and different investment opportunities. And then you can also put your questions in there as well. But you can get to know the people in your community that are also trustees, operating the same way that you're operating and who have been doing this for years, okay? The course is only $997. The second option is Done With You. With Done With You, you get everything and do it yourself. So you get the lifetime access to the course, plus you get accountability, right? And so what we do is we do group Zoom calls, And it's 5 group Zoom calls, and we do it in a workshop style setting, okay? So what we do is we meet from Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next workshop is October 28th to November 1st. And so on Monday, what we do is we set up the business trust. So I go and break down every single paragraph of the trust, show you guys how to set it up. And then after that, we dive into Q&A. Q&A is so powerful, and even being in that space is so powerful because people are asking questions you didn't even know that you wanted to know, and so you actually learn more, okay? Now, Tuesday, we set up the family trust. Together, then we dive into Q&A. Wednesday, we set up the nonprofit trust, and then we dive into Q&A. And then we get our EINs, and I show you guys how to become ordained ministers if that's what you want to do. Thursday, we apply for EINs with the IRS. I show you guys how to create, how to do or conduct a board meeting, and then from there, I show you what it takes in order for you to open up a bank account, so you can open up a bank account. And then our guest speaker comes in and teaches about business credit and business funding so that you guys can learn how to establish credit for the business trust and how to get the funding that you need using OPM so that you can leverage that funding and use it for your trust, okay? And then the very last day on Friday, we learn how to transfer our assets. So if you have real estate, I show you how to do a quick claim deed where you deed it over from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then I show you how to do the bill of sale for your car. So you can submit it to the DMV. So now you can retitle your car into the name of the trust. And then I show you how to put your business inside of the trust by you doing a business purchase agreement, and then you doing an amendment with the articles of organization with the Secretary of State. So I show you that whole process. And then the very last thing that we do is we have a guest speaker come in, and she has 14 years of experience in insurance. She's going to break down and teach you about these cash value life insurance policies and how to build wealth using the IULs in conjunction with the trust, okay? So we actually hold your hand through this entire process. We make sure that we hold you accountable. And the week after the workshop,
We can't hear you.
You say you can't hear me?
I can.
You can?
I can hear you.
Hear you.
I can.
Oh, okay.
Everything.
Thank you guys. Okay. So the week of the
We can't hear you.
I'm not sure who that is that you can't hear me. I think it's just your I think it's just yours. Let me see.
Yeah, they have to unmute themselves.
I hear you, Christine.
All right, thank you guys. I'm not sure who that is. Hold on, let me see.
I can hear you now.
She said she could hear you now.
All right, thank you guys. All right, guys. So, like I was saying, right? The week after the workshop, you guys can book a one-on-one call with me, a one-on-one, and what I'll do is I'll review all of your trust documents to make sure that you set up everything correctly, and we'll finalize it, and then you can print it and notarize it, and then go open up your bank accounts, okay? So you get that sense of security knowing that you're setting up everything the right way. So the workshop is only $2,500. The last option is do it one-on-one where we do private sessions. So it's me and you working together on Zoom. I will then finalize all of your trusts and print them out, notarize them, and ship them to you, okay? So you get that individualized support plus extended support, okay? So we dive more into other things like investments and funding and transferring all of your assets, okay? So you get, you get more assistance. And you get, to learn different things. So with the private sessions, they're only $10,000. So with that being said, if you guys are interested, all you have to do is go to wealthytrustee.com. So you see the website there, wealthytrustee.com. And you can also use our telephone number. If you have any questions, you can call or text. And then you can also email us and visit us on social media, okay? So what I want to do is for the individuals who are on the call, I want to offer you guys 20% off for the next 48 hours. So you can use the discount code TRUST 20 on our website, wealthytrustee.com, so that you guys can enjoy that 20% off discount. So now let me show you what the actual trust looks like. So this is an example of what the trust looks like, you guys. So like I said, a trust is a contract, so everything that you see in red is what you're going to be customizing, okay? So this contract is 60 pages, right? This is just an example of one of the trusts that comes with the program, okay? And so, like I said, I break down every single paragraph of these trust documents so that you can understand what's inside of the trust so that you can operate it the right way. The last thing that you're going to be able to do is operate a trust if you don't know what's inside the trust, okay? So this is what a trust looks like, you guys. Like I said, this is the contract where you're going to put all the rules and the regulations in there, okay? And then this is what the course looks like. So hold on one second. All right, so this is what the actual course looks like. So if you do it yourself, you get the course. If you do done with you, you get the course. If you do private one-on-one sessions, you get the course, okay? So the course has the 43 lessons, all right? And so the first thing that you learn is what a trust entity is. So we teach you what a trust is, who's the grantor, trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the benefits of the trust, and the different types of trust. Then we dive into the actual trust declarations, the articles, the bylaws, and how to actually apply for an EIN. Then we do the same thing for the private family trust with the declaration and bylaws and the EIN. And we do the same thing for the actual business trust. Then we dive into taxes to show you how to operate tax exempt and how to apply for those different statuses, okay? And then we teach you about asset protection. So first we show you how to take an inventory of your assets so that you know what's going to go inside the trust and what's going to stay out of the trust. And then we show you how to create a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. All right. And then the next thing that we do is we focus on wealth creation. So we teach you how to actually build credit with your business trust and how to invest in the stock market. And then we teach you how to do infinite banking with the insurance policies. And then we teach you about the legacy crest and how you can use that with your family legacy. And then we have all the resources for you and all of the ebooks for you. So without further ado, that is the program, you guys. So I want to open up the floor for questions so that you can ask any and all questions that you guys might have. So go ahead and raise your hand.
I just like to add something. I like to let everybody know that I've been on since 8 months and I've been enjoying it because I'm always able to refer back to Christina's the website that she just finished showing you. And she goes over everything in detail. You won't miss anything. And I am so happy. It took me a little while, but I finally opened a trust yesterday. So you know, it is possible, and I've already started my trying to get my business funding, and I've already spoken to one of the other young ladies, Gerda, that you all will be meeting soon about the IUL. So this is a great opportunity. You get three for one shot. I mean, you can't beat it because everybody else is charging so much money for everything nowadays. So I just want to let you know you're getting a great deal, and you're getting a superb young lady who knows her business. And I just wanted to, you know, put my little 2, 3, 5 cent in.
For the unincorporated business trust that's
Thank you
not
so much.
registered.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on one second. Thank you so much, Ms. Bay. I really appreciate you saying that. Ms. Bay has been one of our wealthy trustees since January, and we absolutely love her. One thing that I love about the program is that you have lifetime access. And so, you know, individuals like Ms. Bay, they keep coming to all of the workshops, right? And that
I don't
actually
miss a beat.
with
I don't
retention.
miss a beat.
Yeah, it helps you with retention because you're going to learn the information because you keep hearing it, you know, every single time that we do a workshop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Miss
Thank you,
Bay.
Christina.
You're welcome. All right. So you
My
guys,
my question was for the unincorporated business trust that doesn't have to be registered. Do you get an EIN for that one?
yes,
Oh, so you still can get an EIN even though it's not registered.
correct.
Okay, and I wrote down some other questions, and that's the one that you file a 1041 on, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you said the 1040 for the 1099 employee.
The 1040 is for that's for your regular individuals.
1099 employee
Or W-2.
or W-2. Okay, and what three positions does the trust play with the IUL? You said it was the beneficiary,
The payer and the owner.
the payer, and the owner. Okay, I wrote them down. It's just two more. With the IUL, if they loan out that, oh, you answered that one. Okay. And how do you let the trust renew?
Oh, so whoever the trustee is at the time that is due to expire, at least 30 to 60 days before the trust expires, they have to renew the trust. So they have to have a board meeting saying that they're renewing the trust for an additional 100 years, or they could do less than that if they want to, but they can't do more than that.
And will this recording be saved and given to us?
So the recording is available on our YouTube channel. And so we have the link inside of the chat for our YouTube channel. So we're live right now.
And do all of the trusts have to be notarized?
Yes, that's the only way for you to legally operate your trust.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome, Crystal. Next, we have Harry. Hey, Harry, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for being
Okay.
here.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So the first question is, when you transfer the house into the trust, do you pay any taxes? Like, I know that if I want to sell it to the trust or if I want to give it to the trust, and I'm not sure if it's because it's outside of statutory, do we have to go through what's the value of the house? Now you're transferring the house to them and it's worth so much and you have to pay taxes on it or whatever.
Yeah, so if you're quote unquote selling the house, then you have to pay capital gains taxes. If you're gifting the house, then you don't have to pay any taxes. So you definitely want to label it as a gift, and that's what we do on the quitclaim deed.
Okay. So the other question is let's say I'm already a licensed minister. So how would that work? Do you have to be under that particular group that you have, or does it maintain separate?
No. Yeah, you can maintain it separate. A lot of people come in already licensed or ordained. So yeah, it's you are going to operate your faith-based organization the way you want. Some people will have their boards ordain them, or some people will get ordained through another organization, or they already come ordained like you.
Okay. Now the final question is, if this is supposed to be a private trust, when you apply for the EIN, how do you keep that private, or is there a private EIN?
Yeah, there's a private EIN. It's called a 9(8). It is for entities that are going to be outside of the jurisdiction of the United States. So those are what we considered foreign entities. So you have to have like a foreign address in order to apply for a 9(8) number. Here, if you're going to apply domestically for an EIN, then it is going to require the personal information of the grantor, which is considered the responsible party. So the IRS wants the grantor's information, which is their full name and social. You can also have external third-party companies that will apply for your EIN for you if you don't want to provide your personal information.
Okay.
And are you telling the IRS when you send the form or you call them, I want a 9(8) EIN?
I'm sorry, Crystal. Hold on. I have to finish with Harry, okay? Before you could. Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, Harry. I didn't hear the next thing that you were saying. I apologize.
Okay. So let's say I have several properties now that's not within the state that I'm residing in. So I'm like a sitting duck. What's the quickest way to move it? I mean, now
to move it into the trust.
I mean, the trust is not set up yet, right? We have to go through the courts for that on that particular day. Do you proceed with the quick claim deed into the anticipated trust name, or what do you do?
No, you have
Because
to wait. There's nothing you can do. Like you have to just, you either leave it the way that it is, right? Until you have a legal trust that you can transfer it into, because there's paperwork involved, right? So you need the certificate of trust in order to show the county that this entity exists that you're transferring these houses into.
okay,
You
so you
can't,
can't
yeah, you
just
can't transfer the property into a trust that doesn't exist.
no,
So
what I'm saying
there's no
is
shortcuts, there's no quick ways. You have to wait until your trust is legalized.
okay, so you can't quick claim it into someone else's name and then after it's
But what if that someone else dies before you? That doesn't make any sense. Like if it's in your name, why would you quick claim into somebody else's name? And then now they're gonna have to deed it over into your trust. What if you can't find that person? It's dangerous. So I always tell people this is not a sprint, right? This is a journey. So you want to do everything the right way, and you also want to be patient with yourself, because I have a lot of people that come into this program and they're in a rush. And I'm like, you've never had a trust in your life, but you want to set it up in one day. You need to cross
well,
your T's and dot your I's. You need to make sure that you're doing everything correctly and in order.
well, I had a trust set up. When I applied for the EIN, several months after that, the IRS came back and said something about some fictitious whatever filing or something like that. And I didn't file, I didn't do anything with the EIN number. But in the interim, my trustee passed away during COVID, and there's no successor trustee.
And you are the what? The grantor?
Yes.
Okay, so now the trust is inoperable, right? So
Yes.
are you going to, do you have a board?
No.
Okay, so that's the things that we educate against is we'll have a protector appointed. We have a board of trustees, which are two different, which is 3 members that in the event of things like this where there's no successor, they can appoint a successor, because now your trust has to go to court. So the beneficiaries has to initiate the trust to go to court for there to be a court-appointed trustee if you want to continue to operate that trust.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why it's very important for people to really learn how to actually operate a trust and not to just, not to just do what they want to do. Like that's why we teach you step by step, and we're very thorough. And we
Well,
have all of these, we have everything in place, everything that you need.
well, the reason why I had mentioned that, because at the particular time I was driving private car service, and someone hit me from behind, and even though there was no real damage, the person wind up suing me. So what I did was I had filed bankruptcy. And when I filed bankruptcy on that, the trustee went after my homes in the other state. So after talking with him, he released it. So that's how I was able to get it back. But like you said, we live in Susu world. I was just trying to protect the assets.
Yeah, so I mean, in that case, if you had a revocable trust, then yeah, they can go after your assets. But if you set up an irrevocable trust, it doesn't matter if somebody sued you. They can't come after your trust. And that doesn't mean that you have to appoint someone else to be the trustee, because they can't come after the trustee of the trust, even if they're suing the trust.
Right. I never had the opportunity to move it. I didn't move it in.
You didn't move no assets?
I
Okay,
didn't move any assets in.
all right. Okay, any other questions, Harry? I'm gonna move
No,
on to
that's
the
it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have Willie. Hey, Willie, how are you?
Wait, before you go with them, I just wanted to say, can you add me because I can't raise my hand because I'm driving.
Okay,
So
okay, no
thank
problem,
you.
Mona.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome. Okay. Hey, Willie.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Christine. So
Hi.
quick question. Yes, hey, I'm gonna get you your money this weekend, no later than Tuesday. I'm just waiting for something to clear. I got the 50% discount the last time, but I'm doing
nice.
the what's it? Do it with you or whatever, something like the one, the middle.
Yeah, done with you. Yeah, with the
Yeah,
workshop.
that one.
28.
Okay, so
Awesome.
all right. So my question is, I'm involved with an organization that can provide me with a trust certificate and a indenture for a 501A. Now, what is I know what the 50B does, and I've been trying to look at the 501A to use as my family trust. Yay, nay?
Okay, so are you talking about like the nonprofit 501?
Yes, I'm involved, like with a tribal organization, and they have
Mm-hmm.
trust. They can, they submit the information for you to the IRS to get your EIN.
Mm-hmm.
I have my trust certificate and trust indenture, and it can be under a 501A. I'm just wondering, do I even need 3 trusts if I can get a 501A and still distribute the funds via the 501A to my family members and put the businesses under that, or do you think I still need to go ahead and get that 3rd trust created?
So the 501 is a nonprofit. You should not be distributing to any people. That's not
Okay,
that's not how you operate a nonprofit. So a nonprofit is not, for the benefit of themselves or for the financial benefit of like people. It's for like, it's for the community. It's more charitable. So you can't be distributing to your family. That's not how that works.
okay. When I was looking at it, it said it didn't read like you were saying, but that's neither here nor there. But okay. I'm just looking forward to the course at the end of the month, and like I said, I'll get you your money. So
Okay.
but I appreciate the information, and you are doing the Lord's work, because yeah, I've owned the books that you're talking about, and I've started and stopped because there's just so much information and you get sidetracked, and you're putting it in a box for everybody. So I appreciate that, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I sure am. I'm walking in my purpose and sharing what God told me to share. So I appreciate that, Willie. Next we have Mona. Hey, Mona.
Hey, how are you? All
I'm
right,
great.
so my question is, it's about the grantor and can they be the beneficiary as well, or no, the grantor just could be the grantor?
Yeah, the grantor can only be the grantor. The grantor cannot be the trustee or the beneficiary.
Okay, good. All right, so my next question is about the what you call it, the nonprofit trust. If you can't, distribute it to anyone else, and you was to like to put money in there so you could avoid certain taxes, right? Or to help you with the taxes. Not, we don't want to avoid anything, right? We just, it's a help or whatever how you call it, right? How do you? Why would you put the money in there? Like say when at one point you had said that it can help you. You could put 75% here, 10% there, whatever, to help you when it's time to pay your taxes, something like that you had said. But when you put money into the nonprofit, you're not able to distribute it out. So how do you get it out without paying the taxes on it? Because I don't understand. Do you understand my
Yeah, no
question?
problem. Okay, yeah. So what you're gonna do is you're going to request a loan from the trust. Or you can render a service in 1099 yourself, but the best way is to request a loan. So one is if you're going to do investments, you can do those investments straight from the trust. Like if you want to buy crypto, stocks, bonds, or real estate, you can do it straight from the trust. But if you need to take out money and you want to do it for personal expenses that has nothing to do with the trust, then you're going to request a loan and then use those funds on the personal side.
Yeah, but so you still end up having to pay taxes some way, somehow.
No, you do not pay taxes on loans.
Okay, all right. Now my last question is, all right, so if you have a already have the how you call it, the ordained ship, I guess, with the you have the how you call it, the what's the ministry place that you use that you said you used that you could go to? Anyway, say if you have you're a minister license, right?
Mhm.
How do you put that into the nonprofit or the trust? Like, say if it's in your name, right?
Mhm.
When you got the ordainedship or whatever, does that matter when you make it a nonprofit organization? Like, would it be attached to your name anyway? If you, because like in 2020, I got the UFL. I can't remember what it's called. The universal ministry. I can't remember, but I did that right back in
Mhm.
2020. And I'm like, Dag, it's in my name though. You know what I mean? So I didn't get to the part to know what I'm supposed to do with it. So it's just like, all right, now I'm learning about these trusts and in the nonprofit business and stuff, and how it's best to put all this together. And I'm like, but wait, if I'm supposed to do it again under a different name, you know what I mean? Can you even do that? I don't know. So how do you incorporate it together if you already started it in your name?
Yeah, so if you're already a minister, then all you're going to do is you're going to appoint yourself as a trustee and you're going to have a board meeting to notify the rest of the board of directors that you are an ordained minister, and then you're going to have those a part of your records. You're going to keep proper records for your ministry, so you'll have a copy of your certificate inside of your trust.
So the trust could be named Love All, right? And then within the trust, I would be the trustee saying that I have the minister license, you just said?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Monica. All right, next
All
we have
right.
Tosh. Hey, Tosh. Hey, Tosh.
Oh, hi. I didn't know you
Hi.
answered. Sorry.
Another
Um,
problem.
I wanted to know who can administer a trust besides a lawyer?
Like who can create it? You can create your own.
Yes.
So you have to know and understand that under contract law, you have the authority to create your own contracts. Okay, so if you wanted to create a contract between you and your sister, you can do that. You don't need an attorney in order to create it. If you wanted to create a contract, let's just say that there's a contract between you and your landlord, right? The landlord doesn't need to go to a real estate attorney in order to do a rental agreement between you and the landlord. They can do it themselves, right? So with the trust contract, it's the same way. You can create your own trust contract between you and the grantor and the trustee, okay? So that's how that works. Okay.
Yes. And I also have a trust, but someone created it for me. She had it notarized and everything, but it was pretty much just done online. So I don't understand, like I still have to get an EIN for it. She didn't do that. I was supposed to get my
There's a
own
lot of things
EIN.
that you have to do for a trust, right? You definitely want to get a bank account for the trust. You want to fund the trust. You want to get an EIN for the trust. You want to move assets into the trust. You want to list your trust as a beneficiary on personal assets that are inside of your name, like your pensions, your 401ks, your IRAs. There's a lot of things that you need to do with the trust.
Okay. And so your program, did you go over it? Because I wasn't in, like, after the teaching part of the slides. I wasn't in the
Yeah,
class.
I did. I'll quickly show you again. So I just quickly went over what's inside of the program. So here is the course. So inside of the course, we teach you, the trust entities. We break down everything of that's inside of a trust. the different parties involved in the trust, what are their specific roles, how you want to appoint them in your trust. Then we break down the specific trusts that come with the program. So we break down the ministry trust, the family trust, and the business trust. Then we go over tax strategies, and we provide you with the documents that you need in order to file your taxes. And apply for your EINs. And then we go over asset protection. So you take an inventory of your asset, and then we show you how to create a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your insurance policies, your businesses, and how to have board meetings. And then we go through wealth creation, where we teach you how to build credit for the trust and how to invest those funds in the stock market, and then how to do infinite banking with insurance policies. We teach you about a legacy crest, and we provide you with all the resources that you need and the ebooks for your education.
Okay.
Yeah. So the program, the course is only $997. The workshop is $2,500, and if you want to do private sessions, it's only $10,000. For the next 48 hours, you guys can enjoy 20% off using the discount code TRUST20 on the website. The website is wealthytrusty.com. If you can't pay in full or enroll into a payment plan, then you can actually put a deposit down using the deposit link that you see in the chat if you want to be able to secure the 20% off, so you don't have to pay full price in the future. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Tosh. All right, next we have Miss F. King. How are you?
Hi, how are you, dear?
Great, all right.
Great. Actually, I'm actually retired. I moved my TSP into an annuity index.
Mhm.
How would you transfer that to a trust?
You
Because it
have
is
to
in my name.
contact the company to see if they will allow it. So typically you can transfer any type, not all retirement accounts can go into it, but annuities, yeah, and it just depends on like the the financial institution that you're with. So you have to contact them to let them know that you want to change the owner to your trust, and they'll provide you with the paperwork that you need.
Okay. How do you get the certificate of trust? Is that created once the trust is created, or is
Yeah,
a certificate you get with it?
The certificate of trust is created once the trust is created. So it's one of the sections inside of the trust. So it's like a separate page from the indenture. So you create the indenture, and then you create the certificate, and the certificate is what you bring to the bank, to the dealership, to the closing company, or that's what you're going to provide to your annuity company. So you get it when you create the trust.
Okay. You mentioned that if you guys help through the process, that we would send you the forms and you would notarize them. Aren't you supposed to be in the presence of a notary? How can
Yeah,
you
you
do
can
that?
do everything virtually, so you can do it on Zoom too. It's electronic.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
You excellent presentation.
You're
Um,
welcome. Thank you so much.
like I said, I'm retired. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of your videos and kind of get the concept.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
I would probably love to get one of your classes, but I like to get a little understanding for myself. But
Yes,
excellent. Thank you.
you're so welcome. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure. All right, next we have Mix.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks so much for this presentation. It brought tremendous clarity. I
Thank you
guess
so much.
one of my questions is sort of if I wanted to be the trustee and I have someone in mind that can be the grantor, but I own my property, am I supposed to do a quick claim deed for the grantor to own it? Like, should the grantor be the person that owns the property before it's transferred into the trust if they're the grantor?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, so one is that anybody can add property to the trust, and they don't have to be the trustee, the grantor, the beneficiary. So for example, if your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your child's other parent, if they wanted to add to the trust, they can. Okay. So the property does not need to be owned directly by the grantor. The trustee can give property to the grantor. I mean, excuse me, gift property to the trust. So that's how you would do it. You would do it directly from you to the trust.
So, in other words, the assets that are held in the trust doesn't necessarily always have to come from the grantor.
Correct. Anybody can
Oh.
gift. Yeah. So like I said, if
Oh,
you're
gifted. Okay.
yep,
That makes more
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gift, donate, convey,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was wondering because when I think grantor, I'm like, okay, that's the only person like in the trust structure that can actually give property. But now that you're saying that, that makes a lot of sense. Anyone
Mhm.
can gift. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Then we have Dina. Hi, Dina. Hi, Dina. All right, next we're gonna go to E.
Hello, Tina.
Okay. Yeah, go for it. Go for it. Hi, Miss
Oh,
Dina.
okay. I was one of you. Hi. Okay. Did I hear you correctly when you said that if we had to make corrections with the EIN, that we can go ahead and file the F88, I think it was called, then once we do that, then we should not expect to receive a corrected form back. Is that
So,
correct?
so it's the 88 22B, and then you can follow up and call to make sure that they process the correction.
Okay. But you don't actually get a form back.
No.
No. Okay.
Unless you request it, and then you can tell them to issue you a new EIN confirmation letter.
Oh, oh, okay. I sent it off, but I didn't make that request because I didn't know. All right. And the next one, I was listening to resources, and maybe I got it incorrect. But did you say on the EIN for the family trust one, it's okay if you put yourself as the responsible person?
No, for the faith-based organization, it's okay if you put yourself as the responsible party.
Okay, but not for the other. Okay.
No, for business and family, it's the grantor.
It must be the grantor. All right. I'm moving forward, and I'll be seeing Mr. Darcy tomorrow. And
Yay.
yeah, I booked a call with you so I could tell you why I couldn't move a little further than what I've done. So I'll talk with you about that in private. Okay?
Okay,
Thanks
perfect.
again,
All right.
though.
Thank you, Miss Tina.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, next we have is Miss Esther.
Yes.
How are you?
How are you?
Great, wonderful.
Listening to one of the other um people talking about the court appointed trustee, if it's court appointed, they appoint you trustees, if I'm correct?
If you are not responsible with your trust and you don't appoint a successor, then your trust is inoperable. And what are the beneficiaries going to do? They cannot appoint a trustee, so they're going to have to take the trust to court since you did not list a successor, and they're going to have a court-appointed trustee so that the trust can continue to be operable.
Okay, so if they give you a court appointed one, then that means that person who's appointed will always be in charge. So
Yeah.
that means they can do what they want to do with it.
They have to
So,
go by the bylaws of the trust. So it's not quote unquote what they want to do with it. They have to go by the indenture. And
oh, okay.
a court appointed trustee is a fiduciary, so they already operate in that capacity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what we call an independent adverse individual. So it's someone that doesn't know you or your trustees or anyone, and they come in that position.
Okay, and then they have to abide by the trust as far as how long you have it for as long as it is, correct?
All of the bylaws.
So if, just say for instance, God forbid, everyone passes and this trust has all of your everything, it just keeps going.
Yeah, it keeps going until there, like, it keeps operating until there's an error, or until the trustee makes the decision that there's nobody left and the trust needs to be terminated, and then they have to dispose of the assets. And so they'll send it to whatever organization they see fit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you should appoint a successor so that you can avoid this whole process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
You're so welcome, Miss Esther. All right, next we have Crystal.
Hi, yes. I have a question about the unincorporated business trust that can also be a holding company. How am I making this an unincorporated business trust, and how am I making it a holding company? Is it like a piece of paper I have to fill out? And also with the 98 number, when I fill out that SS4 form, is it somewhere I check off and say like I want a 98 number?
No, there's a process there's a couple steps that you have to take, and you can't just submit it. You have to actually call into a specific number in order to be issued a 98 number, and you have to read everything that's physically on the SS4 form over the phone in order for them to issue you a 98. How do you create an unincorporated business trust is by way of a contract. So you have to actually bring that contract. You have to create the contract. That's how you create the unincorporated business trust. And then what was your third question?
The third question is
How
how
do
am I
you
making it up?
designate it as a holding company?
Yeah.
You'll have a board meeting. So if there's things that you want to do for your trust and it's not in the trust, it's not set in stone, you have a board meeting to identify those things. So you're going to have a board meeting to identify that you're operating this trust as a holding company.
Sort of like the same for the 508c1a, how you just have that piece of paper just stating like, hey, I'm claiming I'm a 508c1a. Is it the same thing for the holding company? Like, hey, I'm claiming I'm a
It's
holding
not a,
company?
no, it's not a piece of paper. No, it's inside of it's embedded in several different sections in the indenture, in the trust document. It's embedded in there that you designated yourself that way. Yeah.
And you said it's in the indenture?
Yes, ma'am.
And how am I doing creating the contract for the unincorporated part?
Yeah, you have. So, I mean, I don't know how you're going to create it. We have templates that you can use. And so if you join our program, you can get the templates and you can customize it, and you'll have an unincorporated business trust.
So it's just basically a contract and I'm saying, hey, I want to be incorporated, and that should be somewhere in the indenture as well.
So our unincorporated business trust is over 51 pages. It's not just a piece of paper.
Plus the around 60 pages for the trust?
No, so the indenture is the trust. All of the three trusts that I tell you guys about, those are not the same. So our business trust is 51 pages. Our ministry trust, the faith-based organization, is over 60 pages. The family trust is over 42 pages. So those are all three different trusts that have different verbiage. None of them are the same. They don't have the same stuff in it.
Okay, but they all have indentures, of course, because all trusts have indentures.
Yeah, so the entire thing is labeled as an indenture. We also refer to it as a governing instrument.
And how would I make it an unincorporated? What kind of contract is that called?
So it's automatically unincorporated because you did not register it with the Secretary of State.
That's what makes it unincorporated. Gotcha. So the word unincorporated is that because it's only unincorporated because it's not registered.
It's private.
Wow, that's so like like literally.
It's the jurisdiction. So inside of the trust, we are identifying the jurisdiction, and we're saying that the jurisdiction that we're abiding by is the common law jurisdiction of the unincorporated Republic of the United States of America. The verbiage is inside of the trust. That's what makes it the entity that it is. If you don't have that verbiage in there, it's not the entity that you think it is.
And you said it's the jurisdiction and because it's the unincorporated Republic of, what was that?
The United States of America.
Of America. Okay. Okay, and as far as the 98 trust, I get that you have to call it in or fax it in, and I know how to put the foreign and all that other stuff, but is that saying with just doing it that way that a 98 number is going to automatically come, or is this something I have to say after I fill out the
You
form?
get approved or denied based off of the information you provide over the phone to the agent.
Okay, good. All right. I just want to say thank you, Christina. I appreciate you.
So welcome, Crystal. Thank you as well. All right, let me check in the chat to see if there's any other questions. So somebody asked, can a judge go after a beneficiary? So when a trust is sued, they cannot come after the trustee or the beneficiary. So someone asked, let me see. Someone asked, do you think Rocket Lawyer is a good place to start? I personally don't think so. They're not going to educate you and teach you. They're going to hand you a stack of papers and you're going to be clueless. You're not going to know what to do. What if you don't have one of your family or friends to be a grantor or successor? In our community, if you join our community, we have a list of people who have volunteered to serve as your grantor, so you won't have a problem. Do you put money into your insurance policies? Okay, she answered that already. Can you put a lease into a trust? Yes. So a trust can do like a rental lease. I'm not sure if you're talking about any other lease, but like a commercial property or a rental property. Somebody asked about the replay. So you just have to go to our YouTube channel. So we are streaming on YouTube. So definitely go to our YouTube channel because we have a lot of content and information on there. And let's see if there's any last questions.
Hey, hi, Christine. I got a quick question for you.
Go ahead. Just join.
The 30,000 injection, how long does it take to get the 28 back?
The 30,000 injection?
Yeah, remember you gave it, excuse me, example of putting 30,000 into the IUL?
Okay. Oh, okay. So it depends on the carrier. It could be like 2 days, 1 day. It could be the next day.
All right, thank you, and thank Miss Bay, because I've been riding with
Yeah.
y'all 8 months too. I know it's that long though.
Yeah, I love that, Steve. I know. I see that you booking with Gerda for the IUL, right?
Yep. Big blessings though. I ain't gonna hold you. You look a little tired, but I appreciate you.
I know, right? Yeah, it's 9:30. I'm ready to get off. So Hickman, I just seen your question. What are some of the other roles like administrative trust officer and ordinary officer? That's your question?
Oh, I was really trying to ask more like, how would they be appointed as far as like just kind of putting that under a trust meeting or a trust minutes and having a board meeting about it, as well as kind of like when you're using that as a unincorporated business trust, really having more like managers and having a storefront and owners and or managers in that place. How would the delegating those roles kind of go about as far as running that unincorporated business trust?
Yeah, so you could have a general trust manager. A general trust manager is just like a general manager of a store. So they're going to be in charge of the hiring, firing, payroll, doing any, financial stuff that they need to do. So the way that you appoint them is we have an administration contact list. So you'll appoint them there and then you'll have a board meeting where you're going to appoint them. You do have to record their acceptance, and then you need to have some type of independent contractor or employment agreement with them separately. That's a part of the trust documents. And then you just operate your business as you would like a regular business.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do as well, holding all of these group classes and all of that. It's a lot of help.
Thank you, Hickman. I appreciate that.
I got a question before we end, if possible.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Great.
My question is, So right now I'm learning about how we all are a corporation, which you started off as all of us being an entity to the United States. So my question is about foreign trust and how to put the trust that was created on my behalf into the foreign trust so that the foreign trust can control the trust that was created for me as my all caps name.
Okay, well, we don't really dive into that. So in your all caps name, the United States created a sister Cuvée trust. And so you would have to create a foreign grantor trust and have the sister Cuvée trust or your all caps name entity be the beneficiary of it. But
Okay.
yeah, but
That portion, I'm sorry to cut you off.
no, go ahead. Ask your question.
My question is, if I was to move forward with this course, is there any way that I would be able to get information on that portion on the route that I'm already taking, or you don't tackle that subject at all?
I don't tackle that subject at all.
Okay, wonderful. Okay.
You're
That was
welcome.
it.
All
Thank
righty.
you.
You're welcome. So somebody put on here, is the 8-9% interest on the IUL compounded daily? No, so it's compounded. So you receive your compound interest monthly based off of what the market was doing for the last 12 months. So they credit your account monthly after the 13th month. The IUL can loans be taken out weekly or monthly? You can take out loans daily if you want. So it just depends on how long the company takes to process it. So, if it's a smaller amount, it might be a day. If it's a bigger amount, they might want to do verification and, take 2 or 3 days. So Brittany asks, so trusts have trustees, grantors, beneficiaries, board of trust, 3 people, and successor. So for the trust that we educate on, the grantor, so the trust has a grantor, which is the creator, that's 1 person. The trustee, which is the controller, that's 1 person. They have beneficiaries. Those beneficiaries can be entities or they can be your kids. And then they have a successor. So the successor can also be the beneficiary, but the successor is just going to be someone who you need to appoint to take over after you. So the ministry is not religious. It could also be educational based as well. All right, guys, so we are all done. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate you guys. And all I want to say now is that it's time for you to change the trajectory of your kids' life. You are the generational curse breakers. That's why you're on this call here tonight. So now it's time for you to train your children to be trustees and for you to change, their children's life as well, right? So it's time for you to pass down this information. So 1, build that legacy and pass down this legacy from generations to generations, okay? So with that being said, you guys be blessed. Let us know if you have any questions. You can email me, you can call the number, you can visit the website.